Um, in a retreat Flint recently led for Open Door Sangha, he said, um, we make our way through the teachings and our own experiences with the faith that something is moving us. Something might fall away, something blossoms in its place, and everything stays exactly the same because everything is always and already complete. Um, I, I think for me, and I imagine for others, that there's something about that invitation to think of everything as always and already complete as anything much more than a concept, an idea, and hard to sit with it as in a really embodied sense of always and already complete. Um, and there's a short poem, it's some of you I'm sure will know it, it's very short, it's called Late Fragment by Raymond Carver. And there's something in this that kind of points to that sitting in it for me. The poem is, and did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so, I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. And I wondered what it would be like if you kind of took a moment right now and sort of imagine, feel your way into what would it be that all you wanted for your life was to call yourself beloved on the earth. What would it be like to feel that sense of beloved? I'm just curious about what is that? What happens with that idea? Because for me it sits next to this idea of when we chant, vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Like many of you, I've lived with these chants for quite a long time, and they've moved in me really differently as I've practiced and sat with people and sat with myself. And when I first heard this, I probably had quite a lot of dismissive snorting going on. So there were certainly lots and lots of parts of me that were pretty sure that was not likely, that was not a possibility. I didn't experience the world as a formless field of benefaction. It was rather, for me, a kind of swirling mess of chaos and randomness. And of course, like in any life, there would be gorgeous moments of connection and warmth and joy and humour and fun, but for me they felt like nuggets of gold being panned from the silt and detritus of life. I didn't have any overriding or underpinning sense of benefaction. The world and I were certainly not the easiest of friends. And finding a path towards this sense experience of feeling myself or knowing myself as beloved has been part of a long journey where I've been, gifted and deeply graced and fortunate to have people around me who love me. And if they hang on long enough, I'll probably let myself know it. So it's a thing to feel. I'm much more frequently leaned into the trance of separateness, of separation. And I know that my self-reliance has stood me in really good stead on many occasions, but it's also been a deep source of suffering. And I can't remember which philosopher said this. If anyone else knows where it comes from, I'd love to know. It's that we are creatures condemned to meaning. Creatures condemned to meaning. Our nervous systems have this innate drive to make sense of the world, and the way that we do that is by bending how we experience the world to the internal templates that we've created over time through all these circles of our experience, genetics, culture, and of course, mystery of our life. And when we sit, we have so many opportunities to watch the way our mind is so busily configuring our worlds. And this is a quote from Bhante Henipola Gunaratana, who wrote a book on mindfulness that I read 20 years ago or something. And it was so relieving to me, because the quote is, somewhere in this process of meditation, you will come face to face with the sudden and shocking realization that you're completely crazy. Your mind is a shrieking, gibbering madhouse on wheels, barreling pell-mell down the hill, utterly out of control and hopeless. No problem. No problem. You're not crazier than you were yesterday. It's always been this way, and you just never really noticed. So having someone write that in a book about meditation was such a relief to me, because that's certainly closer to how I experience my mind and the world than a formless field of benefaction. And so I got really curious about what it was that has supported any kind of process or moments of moving towards that sense of benefaction. And I realized it was nothing to do with me, nothing to do with logic, nothing to do with my mind, nothing to do with my will. It was much more about extending my capacity to lean into mystery, to lean into not knowing, to lean into being open to how small my little part of the world is. Einstein, who I think was quite bright, said, in essence, my religion consists of a humble admiration for this illimitable superior spirit that reveals itself in the slight details that we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble minds. Like just noticing the amazing mystery that we live in. And so for me, it's kind of been a way of sort of uncentering from my experience, as it's been the centering that's been an essential part for me of feeling separate. And our lovely twin grandsons, I'm sure, live in a world where they mostly say me, mine, my turn, me, mine, to the extent that they will even point at an aeroplane going overhead and say me, with such desire and longing to, and they can't be on the plane. It's not theirs, and they can't be there. And I smile when I see them do it, because I think so much of my life has sort of been pointing what I think should have been mine. I want that. And it isn't, and it can't be, and it's never going to be. So that is a great source of amusement for me. I have a dear friend who went on a vision quest, which is a kind of going out into nature alone to see what the world reveals itself to you. And they were sitting in a beautiful surroundings under an ancient apple tree, and they could feel the bark against their back and the sun on their skin. And they looked up and they saw a buzzard flying overhead, and then a butterfly landed on a branch above. And as we talked, they said they came away feeling disappointed and alone. And as we talked about it, they realized that they'd decided it would only really be a sign if the buzzard actually came down to the tree or the butterfly landed on them. And we laughed together. They're deciding how it should be and how that decision actually kept the connection and the mystery away. I read a really marvelous article by Rachel Naomi Remen, called The Soul of Medicine. She's an author that I've loved for a long time. She's got 2 books, Kitchen Table Wisdom, Stories That Heal, and My Grandfather's Blessings, Stories of Strength, Refuge and Belonging. And these are books that I've cherished and have walked with me for a couple of decades. And they're stories about heart and connection and mystery. How we can't know how to fix everything, or maybe even really anything. And I really appreciated this little small thing that she said about compassion that for me encapsulates so much. About compassion, she says, science is very seductive. It offers us the dream of mastery, but we've traded mystery for mastery, and we've gotten a really bad deal from it. What it's done is put the entire planet in peril and every life form on it. And you know, there's a lot that's connected to the Kuan Yin in this. She's talking about the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin, because mystery is not part of the Yang. Mastery is the Yang modality of understanding and action. Mystery is part of the Yin. For me, my sitting practice has been an invitation to rest into the mystery. And even though there's always going to be parts of my nervous system that long for certainty, and the more anxious and troubled I am, the more I lean into this natural desire for knowing, for the straight road. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? How long will it take? What do we need to take on the journey? For years, I had a mental bag in my head that was my apocalypse bag, because the apocalypse is going to come. So, the bag was always, I was always working out, what were going to be the best things to take in the bag. It's like, how could I be prepared for the end days? Which I always think is really sort of sweet. Because it's the end day, so it's kind of a bit of a strange thing to want to prepare for. But anyway, I'm really reminded of the story that Flint often refers to, where the travellers, go on the journey to the fabled city because of the promise of the fabled city, because they have a guide, because they have some idea of duration and what it's going to take to get there. And it's only when they get there that they realise and are told that it's really not the final destination at all. So I really can feel in myself how we offer what Barry Majid has called the curative fantasy, this idea of the place we arrive at, and that we can know the trail and the destination. And leaning into the mystery is a kind of, for me, a softening and unraveling of that whole idea of certainty, of knowing, of will, of mind being any part of this practice. Rachel Remen recounts a story that she heard literally sitting at the feet of her beloved rabbi grandfather, who was a student of the Kabbalah, the mystery. And this story is called the Lamad Vav Zadikim. Apologies to any people who speak that. It's that part of the human race experiment. God will only allow the world to continue as long as there's a minimum of 36 people in the whole of the human race who are able to respond to the suffering of strangers. It needs 36 of us to keep the world going. And should at any time in the human race there be fewer than 36 such people, then the world comes to an end and the human race experiment has failed. And the story invited little Rachel to wonder who these people are. And her grandfather says, "Oh, Neshmullah, nobody knows who they are. They themselves don't even know." might even be you. You might be a member of the 36. So you must behave as though you are. You must behave as though you are. And this felt to a small child, and maybe me and maybe you, very onerous. And I'd love to just take a moment and think, what? What if we're one of the 36 that the world depends on? And what would be our job then? She says, Grandpa, what is it they have to do? Is it very hard? And what would happen if they couldn't do it, the 36 people? And he laughed and he said, Neshimula, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything. They just have the capacity to feel compassion for the suffering of people they don't even know, people whose language is different, whose faces are different, whose lives are different. They just have to have the capacity to feel compassion for their suffering as if it were their own. They don't have to do anything. And I've long loved that manifestation of the Buddha known as Kuan Yin. And we often say, she who hears the cries of the world. She comprehends the first noble truth, that life has suffering in it. Being in a human body means that we will encounter loneliness, poverty, ill health, impermanence, death. And yet, as far as Kuan Yin is concerned, all of this means that no cry can go unheeded, and no moment is incomplete. So here we thrash in our human lives, condemned to meaning, searching for certainty and living life, often through the lens of our conditioning, positive that this ordinary messy life cannot possibly be it. But what if, as Dogen says, we take the backward step to our essential capacity as humans to feel love for the other? And I started imagining, when I first heard that chant about vast is the robe of liberation, and I got over my dismissive, who you kidding, parts, and started to feel something of that, I had a really definite feeling, a feeling like it was around me. It was something that would enfold me. What I'm kind of interested in now is, what if the capacity for compassion is to be one of the 36, to be part of the robe, not just sheltering within it, to actually be an essential part of the robe of liberation. We are the robe of liberation. Rachel Remen goes on to talk about the whole patient, and she talks about the perspective of the heart. That's what we need, the perspective of the heart. And she talks about Rachel talks about her grandfather reading a prayer. And in the prayer, he's asking for the strength to be able to continue living a life surrounded by human suffering. And it's in prayer format. It goes, inspire me with love for all thy creatures. May I see in all of those who suffer only the human being. May I see in all those who suffer only the human being. So I come back to the question, how do I live with this perspective of the heart that values our minds? Osho said the mind is a beautiful servant but a dangerous master. We need to value our minds, we're gifted with them. But can we let go enough to let go into mystery? When my sister died in 1999, and I can say now she was only 56, I was 46 when she died, and she was 56. And I had a dream some months after she died, and it's been a dream that's kind of felt like a profound feeling inside my body, which has stayed with me, which is, although we hadn't been close in the last years, in this dream she was sort of here and not here. She was like a sort of penciled in figure, shadowy, not fully embodied, but still here. And she was, we were sitting in a corridor and there were some books, and she was really fretting over these books and what she should pack, like what she should take with her. And she was feeling really lost, really lost. And although she was my older sister, in this dream, I sat down and I indicated for her to come and sit on my knee. And she came and she sat on my knee, and I held her sort of there, not there body. And I said, just know you are love. Just know you are love, and you are loved. And at that, she sort of just dissolved into this sort of galaxy. She just kind of became the universe. And that feeling of knowing she was loved and loved, she was love and she was loved, was a really profound moment and a shift for me, in feeling that I could feel it was true for her, and maybe it offered the possibility of being true for me. So for me, it's been that when we can start or deepen into the mystery of the ineffable robe that we are part of, and included in that our separateness and our lack of connection, we can actually start to see that as part of our own nature that we bring to the robe. That we don't leave our feelings behind, we just take them with us. But we can also lean into mystery. There was a quote from Pema Chodron, being satisfied with what we already have is a magical golden key to being alive in a full, unrestricted and inspired way. One of the major obstacles to what is traditionally called enlightenment is resentment, feeling cheated, holding a grudge about who you are, where you are, what you are. That is why we talk so much about making friends with ourselves, because for some reason or other, we don't feel that kind of satisfaction in a full and complete way. Making friends with myself has felt like making friends with a universe I don't understand and will never understand. And stopping trying to fix myself, stopping trying to fix the world, and I can stay then a little more often with life as it is. This being just this moment as compassion's way. Because that's all it is. The moment is compassion's way, and everything is always and already complete. Thank you very much.